On April 15th, 2011, Disney Channel released what I think was one of their best movies they've ever made. Happy 10th anniversary, Lemonade Mouth. Here are 5 reasons why I think Lemonade Mouth still holds up in 2021. Number 1, the comedy. Surprisingly, when I watched this movie again recently, a lot of the jokes still held up. I also enjoyed the comedic performances, specifically from Tisha Campbell and Christopher McDonald. I think these two were really some of the funniest parts of this movie. If you remember, Tisha Campbell played the music teacher that was in charge of watching over the kids when they were in detention, and she was the one that encouraged them to start the band in the first place. Christopher McDonald played the principal, who was very against what they were doing, very strict. He rode around on a Segway handing out detention slips. He was so goofy. And he was very over the top. Both of these characters were really over the top, but for me, it worked because, again, this is a Disney Channel movie. This is not supposed to be like an Oscar-level movie. This is just a fun kids movie, and I think both these two understood that and brought that into their performances, making them so entertaining. But I also don't think these comedic performances overrode the more dramatic parts of the movie. I think it was a good balance, but when you look back at this movie 10 years later, these two were definitely standouts among the supporting cast. Number 2, the performances. This one sort of piggybacks off the last one, but this is more specific to the lead cast. The 5 leads of this movie absolutely killed it, and the performances all hold up 10 years later. And looking back at this movie 10 years later, you can see this is where some of them either just started out or what gave them that boost to really start going off and doing some great things. On my rewatch, I would say the standout performances for me have to be Bridget Mendler, Naomi Scott, and Hayley Kiyoko. These 3 really were able to do some very dynamic performances that were way too good for a kids movie, I have to admit. They absolutely killed it. This movie made me a fan of Naomi Scott because before this movie, I had not heard of her, but since then, I've been following her career. I've seen her in Aladdin, Power Rangers, and then Bridget Mendler. Before this movie, I had only seen her in Wizards of Waverly Place as Julia, Justin's girlfriend, and then in Good Luck Charlie. But here, she gave a really strong, dramatic performance. When you look at Olivia's life compared to the other characters, it's like drastically different. Her mom passed away. We don't know really when, if it was when she was young or later in life. Her dad's in prison. It's very heavy stuff, and I think Bridget Mendler did so well playing that character. This felt like such a genuine, raw performance that, again, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but this was so good. You have to go back and watch it if you haven't seen it. And then there's Hayley Kiyoko, who played this kind of wild card of a character where you see she's very, very defiant. She's very passionate about the cause, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get the message out there and do what's right for the school, for the students, everybody. And she doesn't care who she has to go through to do it. And that's what I think is really fun about her character. And then another unique part of Stella's character is that you see that she doesn't feel like she fits into her family because they're all very smart people. Her parents are very esteemed in their careers. And then you kind of get the idea that her little twin brothers are also kind of going down that path. So she feels like she doesn't fit in there. All of that, I think, came through her performance really well. Number 3, the character development. I think one thing that makes movies so enjoyable is seeing the journey of these main characters and seeing how much they grow over the course of the movie. Olivia is very reserved, timid, doesn't want to put herself out there, but then as the movie goes on, as she becomes the lead singer of this band that blows up, you see her start to really grow and kind of stand up for herself too, especially against Gwen, who is being a jerk for a lot of the movie, and he even grows too. You see he has problems with his dad's girlfriend, who then becomes his fiance, and he treats them all terribly throughout the movie. And it's not until Olivia finally gives him a piece of her mind, and that's where I think he really snaps out of it and like realizes, okay, maybe I don't have it so bad. Then there's Mo and Charlie, who both kind of have to deal with living up to their parents' expectations, but then they both get the opportunity to finally stand up for themselves, be their own person. And then there's Stella, that learns to realize that her parents do care about her, and they do acknowledge that she's doing her own thing. And they acknowledge that they're proud of her for being so passionate about social justice and doing what's right for people. I think these characters all go on really unique but powerful journeys that really draw you into the movie and make you really invested in this whole story. Number 4, the message. This is one thing that definitely hit different watching this movie 10 years later after going through the rest of high school, college, and just seeing how the world is. I think this movie still has a message that will resonate with a lot of people, even if you watch it now. This movie talks about censorship. This talks about freedom of speech. It talks about how the arts aren't as funded as sports, and that's something that's still really relevant today. There are a lot of schools out there who are losing money in their art departments because the schools want to put it into other things because they don't value art as much as sports or STEM Art is a way for people to express themselves. In some cases, school is the only place that certain students get the chance to really explore art in this way. And so without that at school, I think it'd be very detrimental to the development of so many people. So definitely art is something that should stay in schools. And this is a movie about that. This is a movie about art. This is a movie about censorship. In this movie, Principal Brennigan kind of represents the people in power, and he sees Lemonade Mouth talking about how they won't stand for certain things happening in the school. They criticize the school for defunding the art programs and focusing more on sports. He doesn't like that, so he says, you know what, you can't perform in our school anymore. And that's a metaphor for how the world actually works. Sometimes there are people out there, revolutionaries, people who say things that the government don't like, and then the government tries to silence them. Like, that's something that's real, and that's something that's still relevant today. And number 5, last but not least, you know I couldn't forget this one, the music. Growing up, I was not a huge fan of musicals, especially the ones where there was more singing than talking. But this movie got it right. I think this was a good balance of the music and the dialogue, but I think this was more dialogue heavy, which I enjoyed. There's a music competition, so it makes sense why you see all these bands performing at different times, but it also just feels more organic. And of course, there's some amazing songs in this movie, songs that will get stuck in your head, songs that will end up on your Spotify playlist. For me, the top ones have to be Determinate, of course, She's So Gone. Naomi Scott absolutely killed it. And when they announced that she was going to be Jasmine, I thought about that song because I'm like, yeah, she can handle the singing parts. And there's some other ones that hit you in the feels, like More Than a Band, Somebody. There's so many hits in this movie, and these songs still go hard in 2021. Now, I will admit, the Mudslide Crush songs didn't age as well, but I understand what they were doing with them. They kind of made them like this Red Hot Chili Peppers sort of band. It's like, oh, I'm better than you. I got a cool car, I got a cool girl. And I'm like, okay. But it was enjoyable. And the songs were catchy, even though the lyrics were kind of iffy. So what are your favorite parts of Lemonade Mouth? Let me know down in the comments. If you haven't watched the movie yet, what are you doing? Go watch it on Disney Plus right now. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.